If we were to.
A line item addition?
Yeah, there would be a lot of budgetary stuff that would go into that, because we'd want to make sure that it was set up in such a way that it would fund a capital budget for improvements.
I think we should say that that would be a proposal, that all of it goes to a building fund, since that is not yet a decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The desire would be that that's how we would spend the money. However, the council will make that decision, not me. So the council may elect to, buy a pony.
I like ponies.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, just my personal opinion is that building as a representation of the city is a lot better, like cosmetically. If you expect other businesses to make themselves look better, having City Hall as an example is great.
Yeah, that is not lost on us.
So I have a question, Dan, about, so the City Hall and the fire department are, what is the 10,000 square feet?
So, yeah, the city hall and the fire department, it's actually one building owned by the city.
Okay.
So we lease out the fire hall to the fire district because they're a totally separate entity.
So it would be nice to see how much money the city gets from that lease, right? And
$1 right now.
Wow.
So in 2022, the lease is up. And one of the reasons that we are having this primary discussion is that we've spoken to the fire district, and we can't afford to operate without receiving enough income to kind of keep the building supported. And so we indicated at the time that we would like to explore either relocating with them, which we did for a while, or what we wanted to do was basically we would charge them market rate on their lease, and they have about 6,000 of the 10,000 square feet. They quickly looked at that, and it pencils out that it's much more affordable to just buy the building for us than to pay the market rate, or then to move. But that is still a negotiation with the fire district. There's a potential that the fire district could say we don't want to buy it. And then we would use that lease funds from from an ongoing lease to the building reserve every year. That would be a little challenging. And alternatively, the fire district could move and this building would be empty. And then we could look at what potential options were available to us then.
you said the city hall only uses 4,000 of the 10,000 square feet?
Yeah.
So it would only lose 1,000 square feet to go to
We lose about, what's it, the Umpqua Bank building is 3,000. Yeah, we lose about 1,000 square feet. But because of how this building is oriented, that's actually quite okay.
Yeah, this is a single purpose room pretty much.
Yeah, we have a single purpose room. We have what's now kind of a break room and a couple offices in the back there that have been used for storage for years. We have a lot of space that we're not using, and of that 4,000, the sheriff's office has got a large conference room up front. So we will fit, everyone will get a little smaller, but we will fit in the bank building just fine.
Plus, there's an empty office back in the corner right now.
Yep.
And a lot of hall space.
Yeah, overall, we spent a lot of time looking at the floor plan, and we did come up with something that, A, more importantly, gave everyone a private space so you could close the door and work. B, gave everybody a window, which I felt was incredibly important. Preserved a small meeting room that we can, meet with guests and visitors. Provided security and general access for all of our files. And more importantly, it has a space for the computer that's not right next to the water heater that just broke. So.
I think Ms. Lundin had a question.
So Dan, you said right now you're soliciting for public comment right now. Is that on the website, or where did that occur? I haven't seen it.
So at any meeting, we always solicit for public comment. It was posted both on the website and in the newspaper that we were asking for public comment on this idea.
And when is the due date for that, please?
The due date for so we don't vote on anything today. So
I
if
understand.
you have both the opportunity if the council so directs, at the November meeting when I'll bring a resolution to this effect, you could have it by then, you could submit written comment at any time. This is just a generalized public comment, period. Any public meeting we have, that's always an opportunity.
So you're proposing, I'm still not clear. So you're proposing
So what I've made as a staff recommendation would be that a resolution supporting the grant proposal, a resolution to support the partnership with the museum, to incorporate the museum as a city entity, to prepare the visitor center to move the museum into, to solicit from the community an organization which would put a cultural and arts program in the museum space. I think there is one identified, but it would have to be an open solicitation. And then to direct the city to move City Hall to the Umpqua Bank building.
All these moving pieces.
Yeah, it's a
They
big,
need to
it's a
start-
big
they need to
setup
start
of
moving.
dominoes.
And that's basically allocating the grant money then.
Yeah, so
Yes.
the grant money is specifically for,
Right.
to remove kind of the bank aspect and make it a usable building. Because right now it's set up as a bank and we're not a bank. You know, what we've done is basically take out a wall, and we've actually already started, I mean, I don't want to mislead anyone. We've actually already started the construction in the bank building to this effect. And if, you know, if the USDA money, I don't see people turning down the USDA money because it's free $50,000. But if for whatever reason that were to fall through, there are a couple other places that we can actually get the money to be able to do this. So it was important that we actually, for some of the money, we needed to have it spent by the end of December. So we went ahead and started the project, and to make sure that it would work, because as we knocked down walls and stuff, there were some unexpected findings, and we were able to make it work. A little bit more expensive than we wanted it to, but it did work.
So your expectation of us is to come to a consensus to start moving these pieces?
Yes, that's my hope.
Okay.
Or to redirect me so that I can focus on correcting maybe a assumption or error that I've made and focus on your actual desires.
Got it.
Anything further from the audience?
I wondered if you had any kind of an idea of the timetable that you would imagine. Of course, everything depends on the fire district business happening, but.
For moving City Hall,
Right.
if so directed, I'll have City Hall moved in the next 4 months. 4 months. And the reason being is really right now we're working out of both buildings. It's very important for us with COVID to be able to have that drive-through teller. So we've got our front office staff who is over across in the other building a good portion of the day. It would be really nice if we were just all over in that one building. It's a safer building. It will allow us to be able to deal with the COVID issues. And that's really one of the big issues is this building was never designed for COVID. Everybody walks through, everybody, you know, it's this other building, you know, when we did the remodel, we designed it with the idea that we were always going to be dealing with, you know, some separation. It's not as ideal, but it does allow us to operate much more safely for the public.
And then I can stop being front office staff.
Or when Rita's out, I'm running back and forth.
Yeah,
from the
or
building.
poor Dan, you know, poor Dan the other day, yeah. Yeah.
For clarification though, you do or you do not have the grant money yet?
We have applied for the grant. As
Right.
part of the requirement for the application,
Uh-huh.
we are asked to solicit the opinion of the public. So we posted a notice about 11 days ago in the paper, and then we posted it also on the website, and then we had this meeting so that people can say anything they want.
That's the normal procedure.
Yeah, it's a normal
It's-
procedure,
okay,
it's a
I
normal
just
procedure
wasn't
for the
clear if
USDA.
you had the money yet, that's all.
Yeah, no, we probably won't get the money until the bill is just about due. But this is actually the same fund and the same grant that Yahat's used, incredibly similarly to remodel the bank that they bought into a city hall. They're a little jealous that we were given the bank instead of having to go buy a bank, but
Thank you.
So the community center, nothing's happening to the community center.
so right now, in alignment with many other communities, our community center is closed until probably phase 3. Once that is open, I'm working with the chamber on some ideas that potentially to better utilize the kitchen as a commercial kitchen and allow different, I need to find money to get the community center to run. Right now, it's an unfunded building, and we don't have, the groups that are using it don't have the type of income generation that it makes it. I'm not going to charge the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts to use the building. that makes sense. So what I really need to be able to do is I need to find a way for that community center to make a little bit of money to kind of cover its operating costs. And so we're looking at some opportunities. The chamber is helping, and we're going to explore how we can better utilize that space, and then allow the community to come back in and start using it. Right now, really, it's not about the money; it's about COVID. But once we have a vaccine, or once we have the ability to open back up, we are going to try to utilize that space in a way that we get a little bit of income to kind of keep it going.
Any ideas would be welcome. So, anything further from the audience or from council?
I believe we should direct Dan to continue moving in the direction we have been discussing for months.
I can,
The workshop.
So there's no.
I concur.
Yeah.
He asked, no, but he
Yeah, I
asked
just
for,
say
he asked for a
Yeah,
consensus.
right.
So I'm asking for a consensus.
consensus.
I think we all agree.
Excellent.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you, Dan.
But wasn't he asking for some,
Yes, he was.
well, now it's clear.
Okay, the next item is the council rules revisions.
So I just want to begin by kind of going through the summary here. A year ago, as mayor, one of the things that we encountered was that the council did not have a lot of ability to dictate the agenda. And we talked about revising the rules. This was actually started that we were going to revise the rules in November or December of last year.
Yeah,
And then it
A
got
year ago.
postponed because of something, and then it got postponed again, and then COVID hit, and then the city manager retired, and I switched from being mayor to the city manager. But I still felt it was very important that we enable the council to have a more direct voice in creating the agenda, because otherwise the city manager had the ability to essentially just pocket something that they didn't want to deal with, and it wouldn't come up on the agenda. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn, both Susan and I felt very importantly that it would be nice if there was a lot more direct input into the agenda. Along with that, we had meetings where we received comments, and Bernice, yours was one of them, about the ability and the need to kind of wait for certain public comment periods. I would note, however, that citizens actually, in our current council rules, have the right at any time to what's called lodge protest, or basically just raise your hand, ask to be acknowledged by the chair, and make a comment at any point, at any time during the meeting. And it's the chair's discretion of when to take that or not.
and I don't think I've ever refused anyone's request for that.
And then finally, there were some issues over the last year where business that was brought up outside of a quasi-judicial land hearing process was included in standard meetings. That became part of the record, and by doing so, it then became something that we had to keep track of, and when not all of that information was included in the record, we ended up spending a good deal of amount of legal responding to, and it's bureaucracy more than anything else. It was responding to an inadvertent admission. But every time you send an email to the lawyer, and the lawyer sends it to another lawyer, and the lawyer responds, and by that time you're done, you've spent $500 on each email exchange. So part and parcel of that, we wanted to make sure that we had kind of specific rules about the content, not to quelch somebody from being able to bring up business at hand, but more importantly, to be able to say, there are some matters that if they're being
Adjudicated.
Thank you. It's hard with the math. Adjudicated in another venue, that it was not appropriate, and we wouldn't accept comments on the record during a standard public hearing or a standard public comment period. So that in place, I started rewriting our rules, much as Bernice accepted or suggested a while back. And after about 2 hours of just going through the first few pages and kind of dealing with some legacy issues with our existing rules, I went to the League of Oregon Cities. Now, the League of Oregon Cities is an entity that basically allows all of the cities to come together, and they generate a lot of reference material. They do legislative advocacy. They're a tremendous resource for getting cities to talk amongst each other and kind of learn how to, run these municipalities. And I said, instead of trying to rewrite ours, why don't I say, what do they have? And they had this 25-page document that I modified very little, but it covers, and it's important to realize that council rules not only cover how the council operates, but it also covers how the council operates outside of the meetings as well. Because there are very specific rules and regulations about what a council can do, how they interact with the different parties. And so this guiding document was a document that the League of Oregon Cities has established and modified over the years. The other things that it does is it incorporates the language as the legislature changes the rules in terms of some public meeting law. It incorporates that language. So I brought that document in. I incorporated the specific changes to increase the amount and times that public could participate. And I will say, I didn't change a lot of it. So stuff like the 3 minutes versus 5 minutes, the 3 minutes is simply the suggested language that the League of Oregon Cities has pushed out there. That doesn't mean that every city has adopted it per se, right across the board. But most of the language in here, I didn't touch. This is just the standard language that League of Oregon Cities has put out there as recommended for councils. And I will say there was an exchange on the Oregon City Managers Association's mailing list recently. A good number of cities are actually taking this right now and modifying their rules to incorporate these because of some of the legal changes in meeting law and Oregon law that are incorporated in here. And I'll mention them as we go through this. So at the end of the day, these rules are yours to modify or throw out however you want. These are your operating rules. There are some sections, for example, if you look at Chapter 3, which is on public hearings and land use hearings, these conform to a very specific requirement, ORS 197.763. So I would tread very carefully in modifying those. I did not touch that section for that reason, because the state law requires very specific actions during those times. The others are really just guidance. There's some stuff about how cities operate and under a council manager environment, what the protocol is for speaking to different people so that you don't end up in legal trouble. Some of the concerns, and I know Bernice would understand this, some of the concerns about having a staff member go directly to a department head, for example, are that the council member may not understand that what they're asking is patronage, which has happened in a neighboring town recently, or could in fact go against kind of the company or city policy. So that's why the council is always asked to direct everything through me or through the city manager, and then I would distribute out the requests to the necessary department heads.
I think in a recent article in the paper, Newport is actually going through this very same thing, and it sounds like they're pretty much using the same template that we're looking at as well.
It is it solves a lot, and please, Bernice, please understand, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. The legalese actually solves some problems, and that's why, though it is, it is developed for both big and small cities, it does address some of the gaps that, say, our council rules have in terms of, required protocol and kind of orders and issues. I will say that in one of the pieces here, the order of business, I modified that pretty significantly. And I did so because I wanted to make sure that we had both the beginning and ending public comment period. I would also note that pertinent to, I don't remember whether it was Bernice or Hollis's comment, Section 3, Public Comment A. Public comment shall occur after the matter up for a vote has been presented by city staff and before the council takes any formal action on the matter. In other words, there will always be a public comment period for any issue that is voted upon. And again, that's the, somebody in the public just raising their hand and asking to be recognized by the chair so they can make a comment.
Is this something that needs to be adopted or ratified at our formal meeting after this discussion?
Yeah, so again,
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
this is a workshop, we
Okay.
can't take any action.
Okay.
But what you would do,
The reason I say that is because I had another commitment that I have to go. And Bill, forgiveness on this, but
thanks for
you-
making it for the USDA part.
Did you have any areas that you
No,
wanted
I
to
will
touch
review-
on?
That's why I asked about the adoption and ratification. You guys will work it out, and then I will make the correction.
Criticize?
No, I trust all of you, so I
Thank you.
will abide by the things that you have put forth, maybe.
May we have that right?
All right. Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that, guys.
No
Gals,
problem.
thanks.
I guess one concern I have is that we also have the bylaws, and a lot of this is in the bylaws. And my concern comes from the length of this document, proposed document, which I agree with you guys as far as going from 7 pages to 25 pages. It's just like, something about it I just resist. Also, I notice in the proposed rules, there's lots of places where it could be condensed a bit and still maintain the same thing. I mean, the same sentence is said 3 different times. There's another way to put that together. You still have all the same words, but not so much space taken up. So, and then there's, a lot of little things, which I'm sure we all, want to look at.
There's no ego for me involved in this at all.
Yeah,
This is
I
League of
know,
Oregon
I
City, so
know.
we can chop this thing to pieces. I don't care.
Well, I think you've made a good point about the reasons why we can't eliminate a lot of it, but I think the plainer and simpler it is better. I mean, because the shorter it is, as long as it does the job and covers what we need to be covered, I think is the point. But, so if we could manage some of that, that would be lovely. As far as, particular, well, some of you may have comments on the general thing, but also, I guess I'd just open it up to everybody as far as comments on particulars or general or whatever.
It's a lot to read. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, after about page 15, I was falling asleep. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff in there. So, yeah, I would agree on shortening this down if we can.
Jamie?
I would be cautious of shortening it, actually. This league has put together all of these rules for a reason. Like, don't just start cutting things out. Like 5 years from now, it could be something that you need and it's not there.
Well, I agree with you in general. I just think it's somewhat wordy and somewhat elongated that it doesn't need to be. And then there's little things that I have questions about as well.
So one thing, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Bernice.
Go ahead, Bernice.
I was just going to say, number one, I worked, of course, with the League of Counties. because
Right,
that was my-
same kind of thing.
But I will tell you, when they put together something like this, they put it together for Portland all the way down to Select.
That's
And
true.
So it really is not true that it is a perfect model for our size city. However, they do have sections, like you said, about the quasi-judicial area.
Right.
That are specific and we need to deal with. I did go through it, every single page.
Great.
I went through every section, and I don't know if you'd be interested at all, or if there is time for it to be done, but there were probably 4 or 5 places where, as public comment, if I could put something in after the workshop, I would just go to that specific thing and say, you handled this way, and then you can throw it out. I'm just
Right.
a citizen, but I think there are some places where you would still do absolutely the spirit. You would catch all of the things that you need to, but it would be done in a little more plain language. The old rules, some of them are quite marvelous.
Right.
Because any idiot me can read them and know exactly what the council does. Yeah, and I'd love to keep the 5 minutes if I had my thing instead of 3. I think most people
So could you do that as a written form that we could have ahead of the meeting?
Yeah, could I just send it in? I mean, what I would do is leave here and send it to all of you via
Okay,
email.
okay,
And all it is some ideas, and take it or leave it.
there you go. Sounds good.
That'd be great.
Do you feel a need to have this adopted by November for a particular reason?
This is actually not necessarily designed to be adopted by November. This is just because it's been sitting on the agenda
For
over
a year.
waiting to happen, and if we don't make progress on some of these, we just forget about them.
Right.
So what I really wanted to do is, I am already operating as the city manager outside of our current council rules
Right.
by soliciting the agenda items ahead. I'm doing what I wanted to have, which is I wanted the council to have a more direct voice.
Right.
We're already including informally or formally in the agenda, the second public comment period.
Right.
But none of those things are codified.
Right.
And if I'm no longer city manager and somebody else comes in, we can go back to the city manager dictates the agenda. And I just wanted to be able to start making those changes. There's no timeline on this at all.
And that's why we invited all the candidates, and I'm glad you are all participating, because most of you will become counselors. So,
Simplifying things and expressing things in easy to understand language is something I've spent my lifetime doing,
Absolutely.
teaching. And I would be happy to volunteer to work on the document in such a way that you would see the way it was and what my recommended changes would be to simplify it side by side all the way through and provide that to the council. I don't think I can get that done by November, but I could certainly have it done, by the next meeting if there is a December meeting.
I'm not sure.
And then you can consider that as, along with
I would do
your
it.
suggestion.
Yeah.
The same thing,
Right.
side by
Yeah.
side.
Right.
I'm not,
So,
I think,
the thing that I would want to do is, if I did that, is to make sure that nothing is eliminated.
Right.
I don't propose to eliminate anything. I covered the courts, and I covered city council, and I covered state government, and so, I'm pretty familiar with legalese and legal language, and I've also been a participant in court situations, not involving journalism, but just, so I feel pretty comfortable, being able to do that in a way that would be helpful to the council.
I think it would be fine if you did something similar to Bernice, but as far as putting together the actual document, I think maybe,
Yeah,
because we have staff.
Ideally what we'd
Just
love.
give that to
Yeah, ideally what we'd love is to
Yeah.
have, if we go through this document and have suggestions or changes.
And
or-
actually from us too,
From
would probably
everybody.
simple,
Honestly,
yeah.
that's the whole point
Right.
of this was, the documents here, this is kind of the foundation of it, but if people feel strongly about one specific piece, it's very easy to change. If people feel strongly about rewriting an entire section, there are going to be sections that we have to have real discussions about if they get rewritten in general.
Right.
Simply because we need to make sure that, essentially, that they're vetted by an attorney or vetted by the League of Oregon Cities, or, we want to make sure that we're not breaking the rules that the Oregon law is providing for. However, at the same token, what is it, E.B. Strunk and White has a great saying, in their book about writing, and it's basically write tight. Use as few words as possible to express
Absolutely.
the idea.
Absolutely.
And
I'm a proponent.
I would just say, for me, the first three statements on the League of Oregon Cities proposal, to me, takes you into the weeds, even though number 1, letter B, says, to avoid invoking the finer points of parliamentary procedure found within Robert's Rules of Order. But I would say those three statements take our system from an informal system of the old document to a somewhat very formalized, although they're saying, but don't let this bog you down. But we're going to bog you down with not being bogged down. It's kind of how and that was then how the whole document felt to me was, it was a little heavy-handed.
And I have quizzed the city manager to find what is legal, because I know that, legal is legal, but what is just recommended, which may be great for Portland or someplace else, but isn't necessary for us. And there are pieces in here, I believe, that are like that and could be subject to discussion.
You addressed it in your old rules beautifully, much better than I agree with you totally, where you said, where the rulings of the chair are challenged, then Robert's Rules of Order. So in other words, when you can't handle it
Right.
together with your rules and procedures, then, you can pull out, I have one of those copies because I've been an officer in an association, a condo association, top of the bill. Anyway, you've done it. You've said that. And a lot of this is not about law. It's about what
Procedure.
you want to have for a rule. There are some things in this about law. God, I hope you're not going to spend our money vetting a few word changes with a lawyer. If it gets big, yes, go to your lawyer. But otherwise, this is not rocket science.
And again, pointing out that a lot of this is in the bylaws, which we cannot change without a vote of the people. So I'm not sure what that's in the bylaws needs to be repeated in the rules. It seems like.
And again, this is an artifact of it's the League of Oregon Cities.
Yeah.
So they don't have necessarily our
Our
charter
bylaws, yeah.
in place.
Because I
And
think
so-
that would knock out a couple pages
Yeah, I
at
mean, we
least
could just
right
go-
there.
Well, and, to be honest, there's some of this, these are rules of procedures for council meetings. But to be honest, some of it is not council meetings. Some of it is just rules for the council and their operation.
Yeah, exactly.
We could create a second document or append it to an existing document
Right.
in terms of, policy handbook, and it doesn't need to be.
Right.
I just felt it was important to bring relatively unaltered the league's recommendations.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, that's the first kind of authority body that we can touch is the League of Oregon Cities and say, okay, here's what they say for the state, and then let's customize it for us.
So rather than going over this line by line, which probably none of us want to do.
Not me.
As these people have suggested sending stuff in, might we all be tasked with, including our new people, be tasked with, say, taking a week to send in comments? You know that we don't like the length of it. You know we'd like it simpler. You know that there's pieces that could be taken out that were just about council behavior. So would that give you a much better picture of what to bring back in our
Absolutely.
next meeting so that maybe we can make some progress for it?
Absolutely.
Whether it's November or December or
I would
January.
actually suggest maybe December or even January. And the only reason I would suggest that is right now the November meeting's gotten pretty long, I think.
Every meeting is getting long. That's why we're having a workshop.
Well, as long as you've got the time, it makes
Yep.
sense to do it, carefully and thoroughly and not under great pressure.
As long as we keep at it and get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as everybody submits the comments. I think one
Yeah,
of the challenges has
that-
been in the past that we solicit comments and then we get,
Nothing.
yeah.
I agree.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Where does it say, and maybe you brought up, what was this other thing you were saying that you have?
The city bylaws.
The bylaws.
And they're on the website.
Okay.
I mean, the
Yeah.
charter,
And I have
yeah.
not looked at those.
Okay.
In this instance. So
Okay.
my answer might be in there, and if it is, I apologize.
There you go, yeah. And it's
But
also
it-
a number of pages long.
But it,
The charter? The League of Oregon Cities document, the one that Dan.
Yes.
Yeah, it actually is available on the website already.
Okay.
As a PDF.
Good.
What were you saying, Holly?
I was asking, now I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry,
The bylaws. Thank you.
the charter.
Is it, where does it say in any of these that the public has a right to raise their hand to the mayor or the presiding officer to
It-
am I a dormant
Public
right? I didn't see
comment.
that.
It is.
Section 8.3, the reading of protests. Interested persons and their authorized representatives may address the council for the reading of...
What page is that on, Dan?
It is in the old rules, section 8.3. It's not page numbered, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's the old one.
It's in the old one, so
Yes.
I.
But in the new rules, it's on page 6, under D, what section is that? I think it's chapter 1,
I'm having such a hard time hearing you behind that mask.
I'm sorry. It's chapter 1, section D, paragraph 3.
Okay,
It's on page 6 of,
thank you. Thank you.
And it's also on the second to the last page, the last physical page, 8.3.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I have page 6 now.
so we have a plan?
That works for me.
Anything else for I guess we do have an agenda here. Go ahead.
What do you think would be a reasonable deadline to have those of us that are not on the council submit whatever we choose to submit to you?
I would say a week, and I don't think you should spend your time, rewriting and doing all of that, because that's a huge task, and somebody else is going to be basically doing it over again. So just do like she's doing, just tell us what you think needs to be shortened or changed.
Should you consider the bylaws while you're doing that?
I'm going to look at the bylaws. I've looked at them before because they are, along with the ordinances, pretty easy to find. And then I think what I may do to make it a little, be able to compare side to side but not type up, is I have a scanner. I may scan the one little section as is stated.
Okay,
Stick it on my page and then type down below and.
how you
send
would
it.
change it, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make it easy.
Okay.
And if I'm not clear, please yell.
Okay, great.
Bernice, I am also just happy to send you the Word file. It's just a Word file. I had to get them at the league to change it from a PDF to a Word file, but they had it in a Word file before they made the PDF, so I'll just send you the Word file that we've
That
got.
would be fabulous.
And I'll send it to everybody who wants it.
And maybe Jerry, you should wait until January, because after then Bernice will finesse it, right? And then we can go through it with your expertise to make it easy to read and because I know the bylaws are very boring usually. They should be called boring laws.
And I do want to make one clarification for the record. The bylaws that you keep referring to
Yep.
are the city's charter.
It's the charter,
There
right.
is not a separate document
Oh, they
called
don't,
the
they're not
bylaws.
Right.
labeled bylaws.
It
Right.
is the city's charter.
Right, it's the
Thank
charter,
Thank you, Rita.
yeah.
Thank you.
And it
Just
is,
saving herself a ton of
Yep,
time.
I was gonna say. Rita
And-
knows the next call tomorrow.
Right.
That took me a long time, because I would have said I can't find mine.
And it's also very important to note, for those of you who might not, the city charter cannot be changed
Right.
without a vote of the people.
Right.
So that document is sacrosanct.
right.
No, no.
That's why it's so boring.
Just want
I don't think it's any more boring than the rules, really.
So practically speaking then, the things that are in the current rules, which are part of the charter, right? Is that what I understand?
Well, they're not the same as the charter, but there's many things in the rules that are also in the charter. So it's like a duplication in that sense.
So we have to keep those.
Yes,
The
yes.
charter is sacrosanct.
Right, we're not changing the charter, so we can't do something that doesn't agree with the charter.
But how long is the charter? 4 pages?
No,
No, it's really not all that long. It's not as long as it
2
used to be.
pages versus 25 pages.
But it's
no, it's
different.
about 10 pages.
10 pages?
But it's big print, so if it were smaller print,
Just for a little historical side note, the city's charter, when it was originally written, was 118 pages.
ooh.
Now it's about 4.
Okay.
You have a lot of good
Yes,
If we take something out of these, what we're working on, and it's in the charter, it's not to be taken out.
right,
Right.
Yeah,
right.
so what I would do is if somebody said, oh, hey, this is in the charter, let's get rid of it, I would put a note under that section, see
See-
city charter, section
right,
2,
right,
item
Right,
3.
right,
And that way, because that way you have a hyperlink reference. that
Exactly.
You can quickly see what the rule is.
exactly.
I can promise you, working for the federal government, this is easy compared to what
And we don't want to get there like the federal government
So,
either.
what I was actually trying to do was jump a step, because I knew that if I rewrote the entire document and brought it, they'd say, well, what does the League of Oregon Cities have? So this was me going, okay, that's the next question that's gonna get asked, so why don't I just bring that one, and then we can go backwards.
I think, other than the resistance to so many more pages, it's a good discussion generator, and it also points up places where our rules are lacking, which there are places, and I think Commissioner Virtue had a comment.
Yeah, so last week somebody recommended to me the book Roberta's Rules of Order, which is fabulous. And I actually want to say I think that both the mayor and the previous mayor actually run our meetings in a much more collaborative way than Robert's Rules of Order, in a very Roberta kind of way. And so if you're interested in kind of a different approach, it's a 250-page book about a more collaborative way. But I think just being in our meetings is very much that feel.
I know I've run it very relaxed, and when I read even our old rules or our new rules, I feel like I'm remiss in not being more formal, but I do always remember how I felt when I came to the council, having never been to a council meeting before, after I moved to Waldport, to present an idea before the council, and I experienced some of what Bernice referred to. You know, I said my piece, my 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was, and then the council said thank you, and that was the end of it. That certainly does not feel like you've been heard or like anybody really cares. So I've been guided by that always in my 20 years involved with the council, and when anybody raises their hand, I always, allow them to speak, because I do think citizen involvement is important. It has to be balanced with time for the city to do its business, and I know lately we've gotten to the place where month after month we're having to put off things because we don't get it covered. And I think that we're going to have to bite the bullet and start having workshops like even Yahat's, which is a third our size, does a workshop and then a council meeting, so that there's time to deal with the things that are on our agenda that we need to have done. So we're not there yet, maybe, but don't be surprised if I don't keep pushing for that, because I just hate to see we only meet once a month, and we come, and then we can't get stuff done, so it's pushed off to the next month, and then the next month more is pushed off, and I don't think that's how we should be doing the city's business. So that's my piece, sorry. Okay, other issues, additional comments from the viewing audience. Do we have comments from the viewing audience? None, okay. Anyone else have something to say? Whatever. You're welcome.
Okay, I have a question. Can you give me an example of, and I don't know, I'm asking this to the council, but it might be towards you more, Dan, because you made the comment. When you were talking about there has been business brought up in a standard meeting to where some things become a part of the record, but some things don't become a part of the record. And that was kind of confusing to me. Is there a way you can give me an example of that?
So comments outside of, I'll give you a good example, and I don't want to pick on you here, so I'll try to be vague. But essentially comments outside of the LUBA hearing process that we've been going into prior to the LUBA hearing that were made in general council meetings become part of the record. Those are actually ex parte contacts outside of the judicial process, the quasi-judicial process that's been happening. What should have happened, and what ideally under the rules should happen, is that those comments should be reserved for the actual judicial hearing, because what it created was a series of records every time it was brought up at a planning commission hearing or at a council meeting that then became part of the official record for LUBA, to which, when we didn't recognize all the different comments you made, you asked to have included in the LUBA record, and by the time it was said and done, it cost us almost $3,000 to go back and correct your objection to the LUBA record. That's not to say that it's not totally within your right to do so, but what we need to do is make sure that we have rules in place so that when a ex parte contact does take place, we can say, hey, you know, that's great, but this needs to be reserved for this specific public hearing, not every Tuesdays or every second Thursday's council meeting, so that we don't end up with 20 different entries in the record and the LUBA hearing, the land use hearing record is confined to the appropriate venue and time.
Basically, the land use hearing is it, and anything else besides that, obviously, as presiding officer, I should stop from happening so that it is all in the body of the hearing itself. That's the procedure.
But if it did happen, and you happen to know because you're at all these meetings, flag it, so you don't have to spend $3,000, flag it, that you better pull that and have it ready. Because you know how
Right.
many appeals do you have in the city at one
Right,
time?
right.
Yeah, so I could do it.
More importantly, I just say, please
Yeah.
stop.
I very much appreciate you, and I have no problem. I don't feel like I'm being picked on in the least, so that, you said that, I don't feel that. But that is one thing that I think when you have a thing and it says, you as a city council are opening up a 5-minute comment thing, then that is prohibiting the public of commenting on something, whether it is a quasi-judicial hearing, whether it is anything. Because how do our publics find out about that when they cannot attend the meeting, but they do take the initiative to read the minutes? So that's one thing I guess, and I'll give you some feedback if that's what you want in response to this. I appreciate just being able to verbalize that in this workshop,
yeah.
because that negates public comment regardless, because it says in there, and I can't tell you exactly where it says, the public deserves to say whatever the public wants, and we have this section of time allocated to that, and we are asking you to take only 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever, but if you think you need longer, then you can raise your hand. And I just take big, huge exception to that. I don't take it personally, but I'm just saying, I think I'm looking at it from a public's thing, not from a Hollis thing.
So
The public should have every right.
we've had other legal issues that the city is engaged in, and we can't have ex parte communication. So it's not just LUBA, it would be about anything that we can't have public comment about an issue in which the city is engaged in some judicial process. We just can't. And so it's not a decision of ours to make that. It's a decision, we have to be conscientious about making sure that we follow that. That's the law. So we cannot do it.
And the other thing, Hollis, is that a LUBA hearing, notice goes out well in advance. We invite also, people can come and comment, they can send in written comment, but when the hearing is closed and then the council deliberates, that process is over. So if people have comments about it, they need to do that in preparation for the hearing. It can't go on forever that people can, oh, I just heard about it 3 months ago, this happened, and I have a very strong opinion about it. That just isn't how it works. It has to be confined to that public hearing, which is a formal thing exactly for that process. And I don't know if you're confusing it with the general 5 minutes, which is a totally different thing. But the hearing is just I'm sure talk to Barnett, I think she knows that
Well, yeah,
very well.
I appreciate that, Mayor. I think you are right on. I think I'm totally confused.
I'm sorry about
So
that.
I don't know, I guess I'll have to think about that and
Yeah.
cogitate on it and either contact you or
Absolutely.
something in regards to understanding and clarifying that.
Right.
Because I am totally perplexed and totally confused.
And the 5 minutes of general public comments, which now we've got before, after, and at any particular
And
motion. Yeah, so 5 minutes, we have to do our business as well. Now, normally, there's just 2 or 3 people here, but if there's more people, pretty soon, it's just all about public comments, and that's not the purpose of the meeting, although public comments are an important part as well. But I don't know that there's any jurisdiction that just allows unlimited public comments.
I'm not asking for unlimited.
Well, right, but even 5 minutes, what can't you say if you're, if you really got your stuff together, what can't you say in 5 minutes? And when have I ever cut you off at 5 minutes? Sure, go ahead.
I'm having a real hard time hearing with that, so.
I'll be loud. I'll do
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
In the last year that I've been a city commissioner, you come to like 90% of the meetings,
Uh-huh.
which I completely appreciate because it always matters to have people care.
Uh-huh.
And I think the city council feels, in my experience with city council, I'm usually the only person in these chairs. And so in the last year, it feels like there's been better energy in our city or better communication or something because more people are showing up. And I think that these 3 seats in Rick's is showing, like, more people are showing up, more people are getting involved.
Uh-huh.
And I think that some of your frustration was in that beginning era, or I call it beginning era, because it was my beginning era, of people didn't know what was going on. People didn't, the public notices were going out, but they maybe be in the paper and we didn't get the paper, so we didn't see it, or there was just like a weird communication happening. It wasn't a lack of communication, it just wasn't getting delivered right. And so I feel like in the last year, things are changing at the city level to invite and be more inclusive and ask for people to be more involved. And some of that I think is because of your efforts of showing up at all, as many meetings as you can and taking your 5 minutes that you deserve to have. I don't know about the LUBA hearing. I don't think I'm supposed to know about the LUBA hearing. I think that's kind of where this is getting at, is like some things are, get past that public part. But I do think that your efforts have made a difference. And I see the city council trying to meet your efforts and meeting everybody's efforts to try to involve more of the city. So that's all I'm trying to say.
Just to chime in, I think one thing that has come with city council that I've been impressed with is this right behind me.
Yes.
People can sit in the front room,
Yes.
they can see what is being said. I don't care how much paper you put out. Us from the old time, and I
Right.
say old, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough. I didn't like to read when I was growing up, and I still don't like to read. Show me the video and everything's gonna be fine. Well, this right here, you get to hear. And if you have an opinion, you get to have your opinion because you've heard what everybody in this room has said. And I think that's what this technology has done. I've been in this town 16 years, and I never wanted to be involved. Well, then we got this, and I started seeing what was involved and how I could assist. So I think this is a great technology, and having concerned individuals. I don't know what Lou is either, I just looked it up on Google so I could figure out what the heck it is. I thought, there's a party and I don't get to go to Lou party? Now I know what it is. It makes sense. I mean, the tough part about being in this kind of business, and I'm retired, but is everything's got an acronym.
Right.
But at least this takes away some of the acronyms. So I appreciate that we do this.
I always say thank you to Eric. I'm very grateful. And I agree with you 1,000,000%.
And Eric, how many comments do you get?
Over the course of a week, because we started doing this, we were doing city lots as well, and we just don't have the time anymore, and it's unfortunate. We would like to get back to that, but all the meetings, between the meetings and the postings we do, IS is being seen almost 75,000 times a week.
So that's seen, how many comments or questions or,
Well, and then so that just leads to when you break that down to the views that an individual meeting gets, in that week, you could see 2,000-3,000 views easy on that one meeting. So whether they watch the whole thing, I don't know, but we also switched to YouTube so that anyone, instead of just having, we have to have a Facebook account, now anyone can, you don't even have to have a Facebook account, just watch it.
Over and over again.
Yeah. Over and over.
oh, yeah, right.
Insomnia.
When you can't sleep, right?
Someone make a joke
Mayor?
about huge ratings.
Mayor Woodruff, my dental appointment that was supposed to be before this meeting, they called at 8 o'clock this morning and changed it, so I do need to.
Okay, well, we're basically winding down, so thank you.
Mayor, Bernie, I don't know if you can
Yes.
see her hand.
Yeah, not
I
well.
just wanted to say one specific thing, because I won't remember, it's not in the documents.
Okay,
I thought you came up with a really important problem that can happen to you, and you do need to do your business. We're just fortunate enough that you listen to us also. And that is, if you look out in the audience, and you've got 30 people here, and you know most likely it's going to be on, I don't know, the new flag or whatever, and everybody's here up in arms. One of the meetings that I used to be part of regularly, they'd say, how many are here to comment on blah, blah? Well, if they had 20 of them, then they would say, you know, we have this many minutes, and I'm really sorry, but your time's going to be a little shorter, and maybe take something. You probably already know that,
Yeah.
but it is a nice management thing without, and it's not in the rules, so I can't just,
yeah.
I mean, maybe it ought to be in the rules, but I thought I'd mention it now. Because
Actually, there is a place where there's some
You can count.
options.
And-
There's a lot of
and
people.
actually, I will say, in my experience, we did that with the arts group. We had so many people in here to talk about the arts group that we kind of just said, hey, does anybody have anything unique to say? But who's here to support the arts group? And the entire room stood up. You know, that was really, and they had T-shirts too. That made it a little easier.
And if I missed it in the rules, I'll see it as I go.
Yeah,
You know,
you'll
I
see it
thought
there.
I did.
Yeah.
That's happened too.
And we often have also moved up things from the agenda. Now, it says in these rules that has to be a vote of the council in
I was
order
gonna
to.
change
That's a little
that for
much.
the consensus of the council.
It could just be the mayor that does.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been my discretion if there was, you know, either somebody who needs to leave right away or whatever, that we obviously can move up an agenda item without any problem that I can see, and I
I think we
have
almost
never,
always do.
yeah, I've never heard anybody voice that that was a huge problem, so.
Okay.
Well,
Sounds good.
anything further? Want everybody to say everything they want to say? If not, let's be adjourned.
Sounds good.